So if you're someone that suffers from consistent negative self-talk, I'm never good enough, I'm a failure, I'm never going to be anyone. If you say those thoughts to yourself on a daily basis, there is no way you're going to think anything of yourself but that. And initially, when you have negative thought patterns, it's not easy to just the next day be like, oh, well, I think I'm amazing, and to feel that way when you've been training yourself for so long to think these really negative things about yourself. So with affirmations, you have to be consistent and you have to be saying them to yourself. And it does feel really weird at the beginning when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm loved.
Yeah.
I'm intelligent, all these things. But over time, you almost convince your brain into thinking that these are true, and then it has like a really amazing effect on your overall mood, your mental state, and then you can kind of move that forward into going after whatever it is you want to achieve. It says, do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and start with whatever tools you may have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Couple of Lattes with your host, me, Jacques Massey. I'm on a mission to give people wings and roots, and Couple of Lattes is a podcast designed to offer simple solutions to your perceived problems, empowering you to take charge of your life. Couple of Lattes brings powerful conversations with some of the most insightful people in the world straight to your ears. You can listen to new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on your chosen podcast platform, and you can even watch it on YouTube. Anyway, time to create some purpose and find some meaning in your life with this episode of Couple of Lattes. Hello, friends. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur running 3 successful businesses, all by the age of 25. And she's only just getting started. In today's conversation, we dive into entrepreneurship, the challenges, the positives, the net gains, and of course the net losses. There's always a certain number of sacrifices that you need to make in anything in life, and entrepreneurship is definitely no different. I loved the direction this chat went, and as you'll find out, today's guest has an incredibly positive personality and just really has a way of uplifting any room and any conversation that she's in. So let's get into today's podcast on Couple of Lattes.
I can completely relate. Like, I was going insane, and some of the things that I was doing in my house, I was concerned.
Come on, you gotta tell me about this.
Like, I was doing random things, like, I don't know, looking at random objects in my house, which I've never noticed before, and being like, oh my gosh, wow, look at how that's made. I wonder how they got that in here. And then I was just sitting there thinking, okay, I'm losing the plot.
So who is the guest on today's show?
Hey guys, this is Natalie Fraumeni. I am the co-founder of Peckish Sydney, a food publisher which showcases really amazing food content of Sydney's food scene, and founder of White Butterfly Tributes, which is a funeral tribute video business. And if you couldn't tell by the businesses that I run, I am a foodie at heart. Did you ever have any moments like that?
Yeah, that's kind of cool though, right? Like, you're kind of starting to notice things a little bit more.
You could say that.
Yeah. Well, tell me how. I'm really interested to know, because I re-listened to your podcast with Erica yesterday, I think it was, and you were talking about you were getting into meditation with the whole lockdown thing. How's that going?
Yes, it's good. I'm meditating 10 minutes every morning, which is incredible and super important for me because I am on the go constantly. And for me to just have 10 minutes in the morning to just center myself is super important to just calm my mind. So yeah, it's been good. I've been consistent with it, but initially was so difficult to train my mind to just be still. Yeah, have you ever gone into meditation before?
I'm super into meditation. It's kind of my jam.
Oh, that's so good.
I did recently, actually, I did a week-long silent meditation, which was one of the more challenging meditations I've done today. But it was so amazing. I cried a lot, which was crazy.
Insane, yeah.
I had a moment. It was a really cool moment. I was telling a friend about this the other day, but I was sitting in the park in the botanical gardens, and I'd been at the park on this chair for about an hour, just watching the wind hit the leaves and just really like noticing everything that was going on. And old mate Pigeon just came and sat next to me. And
Little
it's
friend.
yeah, my little friend. And it's really weird to explain this. And sometimes people look at me funny when I say it, but I truly felt like I was having a conversation with this pigeon without any sort of words, because there was nothing else going on. It was just me and this pigeon. It was just sitting there, just bobbing his head.
Wow, you guys were vibing.
We were vibing. It was such an amazing moment.
I love that. I don't think too many people can say they've vibed with the pigeon before. So
It was lockdown. I needed friends.
no judgment here.
Awesome. I'm going to kick off by acknowledging that road mic that's sitting in front of you, Natalie. And I want to kind of introduce the backstory to it. You and I met online. We haven't met in person yet. Hopefully we will get to one day when I'm in Sydney. We can have actually a couple of lattes. But
Fingers crossed.
yeah, we kind of planned this a little while ago, and then you mentioned you wanted to order a mic. But unfortunately, there is currently a worldwide mic shortage. So first of all, congrats for getting it. And secondly, why do you think there's a worldwide mic shortage?
Because during COVID, every single person decided to start a podcast.
Yeah, it's that or sourdough, right?
100%. And I actually needed this Rode mic for something else for work.
Mm.
And I just thought, oh, if I'm purchasing this Rode mic, I may as well just use it when I record the podcast with Jacques. Little did I know it was going to take at least 2 months to arrive. So this has been well overdue, but we're finally here.
Yeah, I guess follow-up question then. Are you going to start your own podcast now that you've got a fancy mic?
Look, it is a little bit under wraps at the moment. I have always wanted to start a podcast. I have got 1,000 things happening at the moment. So I think I just need to relax a little bit. But maybe mid next year, it might be on the cards.
I'm so pumped, and I'm glad I feel like when news networks get the first story, I feel like I just got the first story.
Inside scoop right here.
Sorry, Erica, but thanks for connecting us.
Thanks, Erica. Shout out to her.
Yeah, actually, go listen to the Balance Theory podcast. That's kind of how we've connected. But yeah, I guess I listened to your episode with Erica, and I was like, oh man, Natalie's got such an amazing personality. She seems so pumped on life, but then she's also running 3 businesses at the age of, how old are you?
Now I'm 25. Yeah.
But at the time you were 24, right? When I was listening to the podcast. So I guess I really wanted to talk to you about entrepreneurship. I guess I'll give you a little bit of an idea why I really wanted to talk to you about this topic is, like, I'm not naturally entrepreneurial. I know this now. In my 20s, I thought I was naturally entrepreneurial, but I realized that I fit very much into a creative space, and also I'm quite naturally like a leader and a guide. I feel like that's something that I'm quite naturally good at. But life has taken me on this journey where I'm now forced into a world where I have to be a little bit entrepreneurial. So from a personal, selfish perspective, I really want to learn some things off you. But I also think that anyone listening to this will get a lot of really, I guess, positive information if they want to be entrepreneurial. But then I think also just generally in life, because I feel like you've kind of cracked the code almost. Like you've found something or some things that you really enjoy doing. You have this amazing energy. So I think you're going to be able to share that today with people. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was an incredible intro. And I also think you need to give yourself more credit, because creating a podcast, that in itself shows the perseverance that you need to kind of have that entrepreneurial personality. So thank you so much for that intro. And I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for that, Nat. And I guess first question, let's move straight into it. How many businesses do you run? What are they? And this is a 2-parter because I'm amazed that you run 3. I've already given it away. Apologize. And then the second part of the question is, what drove you to become an entrepreneur? Because as much as I guess it's glamorized nowadays, it's not easy, right?
Not easy at all. Okay, well, we'll start with part 1 of that question. So the businesses that I run, I've got Peckish, which is a food publisher, and that is my passion project. So I launched Peckish about a year ago now, and I have a business partner for that. And the idea of Peckish is to essentially be a food publisher where we create innovative photo and video content to showcase Sydney's food scene. So we're a little bit different to just your average food blogger or, your concrete playgrounds, because it's kind of through a personal lens. And I tend to be the presenter and the talent for Peckish, which is a lot of fun because I've hosted a couple of our videos, and we're actually moving across into the TikTok space at the moment, which is starting to take off. A couple of our videos have reached over 100K, which is super exciting.
Wow.
So that's my newest baby, and I'd probably say that's just like my passion project, which I absolutely love. And if it isn't obvious, I'm a massive foodie, which is why which is a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's my first business. The second one is White Butterfly Tributes. I launched that 3 years ago, and that business, essentially I create funeral tribute videos, which are memorial videos that are played at a funeral service to commemorate the life of a loved one. And that's a little bit of a change in tune because
huge. It's totally
massive.
different.
Yes, and a lot of people can't believe I'm in the funeral space, but I've been doing that for about 3 years now, and I really love that type of work as well. I find it super rewarding. I work with families on a very intimate, personal level. Obviously, going through extreme grief, just lost someone that they really love, and to provide them with a memory keepsake of their loved one is really rewarding and fulfilling. So that's business number 2.
I feel like if I can just quickly jump in there, that this was one of the things you and I talked about actually when we first had a bit of our Zoom catch up those a couple of months ago now, is like I think I asked you the question, do you feel like doing that business, the White Butterfly, like the funeral business, when you're exposed to that much death, it almost gives you a greater perspective on what's important in life. And I can't remember what you said, but I can feel that in your energy, Natalie. And I feel like having that part of your life probably drives a lot of other areas in your life that you're really passionate about. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think going to funerals on a regular basis grounds you so much. I mean, I get to see a snapshot of so many different people's lives and an insight into the way they lived, the relationships that they shared with people. My favorite part, this probably sounds really strange, but my favorite part about going to funerals is listening to the eulogy and just listening to why people are remembered. And I think on a weekly basis, hearing, people were remembered for the relationships that they shared or for the good deeds that they did. It's really grounding. And I think I live my life in a way where I think, okay, how do I want to be remembered? And 100%, I think it gives me an extra zest for life because at the end of the day, we're all going to end up there. So you really have to live each day to the fullest.
You almost have to live your eulogy, right? Like I find a lot of people wait until someone dies until they say, oh, I really love this person, or this person was this and this person was that. And one of the habits I've got into now is like, I will like straight up acknowledge people when they're doing something amazing. And oftentimes I notice people are uncomfortable by it. Like when I tell someone, like when I told you at the start, like I find you someone who really inspires me. You have this amazing energy to you. Like it's weird for us to have those conversations in life. But I guess for you, like you see all these people having these conversations with the dead and you're like, it kind of makes me think like, why don't we do that more when we're alive,
Definitely. We should be telling each other, how appreciative we are and how much we love each other. And because I think when it gets to that moment, you don't want to have any regrets of, I wish I did that more.
100%. Okay, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I'm getting too excited. Let's
That's
move
okay.
into,
I'm glad you're excited.
Yeah. Let's move into the last business.
Yes. So the last business is social media marketing and content creation. So with that, I create photo and video content for a couple of clients. One of my biggest clients is a chain of childcare centres. And what that involves is me going to a different childcare centre once a week and creating photo and video content for their social media channels and for their website. But that is probably something that I'm just keeping my current clients exclusively.
Mm.
And I'm not really looking to expand that business as much moving forward because I want to kind of grow the other two. And
Gotcha.
there's only so much I can do. So that's kind of the direction I'm heading now.
That makes sense. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that was your first business, the social media one?
It was, yes. And
So I
then
guess,
everything's kind of,
so I guess
been a
that's kind
domino
of,
effect.
yeah, right. I guess that's kind of like your bread and butter, right? Like you kind of keep it as long as you need to as your foundation, but now you're moving into some areas that you're really passionate about. Peckish being the main one.
Definitely.
White Butterfly, I guess, is kind of your secondary, but also such a beautiful project. And then potentially halfway through next year, a podcast. Who knows?
Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess the second part of the question was, what drove you to become an entrepreneur? Do you think it was something like, is it something that's been encouraged in your family, or I'm really intrigued?
That is a very good question. I think I've always known that I am not a 9 to 5 office person. I've always known that about myself. I think it's also because I really thrive on versatility throughout my weeks. And for me, just the whole vibe of just sitting at a desk Monday to Friday, not moving, really does not appeal to me at all. And people who know me personally know that I am always on the go, doing a million miles an hour. Everyone's like, you need to just slow down, calm down. And I think just being constrained into an office space just did not appeal to me. I had a couple of internships pretty early on when I was studying at uni that also kind of just deterred me from the whole big media corporation environment. And I just thought, I'm going to go off on my own. And I probably started my first business when I was about 20.
Wow.
And I think as well, my dad is also a business owner. So he has owned Italian restaurants for as long as I can remember, which I think is probably where a bit of my passion for food comes from as well.
Makes sense.
My dad has always owned restaurants. And I think seeing him be the way that he is in businesses, I've probably looked up to that a little bit as well.
Tell me about this this kind of negative work experience you had. How did that kind of affect you in terms of going, you know what, I'm just going to work for myself? Or was it more the fact that you just didn't like the industry?
A bit of both. So I actually studied journalism at uni, and I wanted to be a journalist. And I think journalists have a very overglorified career. And I just thought it would be really cool to like be a news reporter and be reporting on all of the latest issues and things that are presenting themselves in society. So I got an internship with a pretty big news corporation, and I was sitting alongside the news team. And on a weekly basis, they would have this thing called a news wrap, which the head of each of the major news outlets, so news, fashion, sport, would kind of come together, and then they would report to the head guy and basically say to him, these are the stories that are going to be published in the afternoon, and he would say, change this, fix that. And I was sitting there one day, and they were saying that there was a story that was going to be published about a guy in Queensland who had driven his car off a cliff and drowned. And this was the first time I was sitting into this news wrap meeting. And I think they kind of forgot that I was there. And the guy that I was working under said, and unfortunately, this guy drove off a cliff and he drowned. And then the head guy kind of just said like, oh, why are you saying unfortunately? And then they all just kind of started laughing and saying, oh, we're going to profit off his death anyway. And I was mortified to hear them say that. And then they all kind of looked at me and were like, oh, we've got an intern here. We've got to be careful she doesn't report us. And I think in that moment, seeing the kind of attitude that these journalists had towards, I guess, making money, but in a way that just didn't align with me ethically, I just knew that wasn't for me. I wasn't really a fan of the industry. And then I kind of just went on my own path.
That's a powerful story. First of all, I want to acknowledge you on a personal level for sticking to your principles and your values, because a lot of people in that
Thank you.
situation, no problem. I think a lot of people in that situation wouldn't. So, especially at such a young age, like that's incredibly mature of you to do so. Like me at 20 years old, I honestly don't know what my answer would have been in that kind of situation. So well done. I guess a positive to take away from that is, I suppose what you're doing now is you're almost becoming your own journalist boss in a sense. Like you're doing that, like the Peckish side of things, where you're presenting things as if you would have, I guess, your kind of dream version of that career, which didn't work out to be, unfortunately. But then you're also potentially looking at doing, like a podcast. So I think when you look at it from that point of view, doing that study has and having that experience has led you more into the path that you kind of want to be, right?
100%. And it's really funny that you say that. I think I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to work for someone else. I'm just going to create my own career. And I think that's what I'm doing at the moment, which is good.
Yeah, look at me now.
So far, so good.
Yeah. That's amazing. So I'm going to kind of shift a little bit to the tougher aspects of entrepreneurship, because like I said at the start, like there's kind of this overglorification of, being an entrepreneur is like easy and it's amazing, and it really isn't. And I'm sure you'll agree with me on that. So talk to me a little bit about the sacrifices. And before you do that, I'm going to kind of use a metaphor that a friend of mine, Chris Cannon, if he's listening into this, talked to me about. And that's that life is like a bank account, right? And every single decision you make in life is you're either withdrawing or you're depositing into that bank account, right? And often what I kind of refer to as short-term pleasures are a withdrawal, right? Like, oh, I'll watch Netflix tonight, or I'll go have a drink with the lads, or I'll go have a drink with the girls tonight. Those are like short-term withdrawals from the bank account, right? And unfortunately, when it comes to depositing into the bank account and leaving yourself with more abundance when you get older and more abundance in life, it's hard to make those initial deposits because they feel really tough at the time. Like you have to sacrifice things. So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of mention that metaphor before you kind of talk about the sacrifices.
Definitely could not agree more with that metaphor. And I think the longer I have been on this entrepreneur journey, the more sacrifices I continue to make. And you are 100% right in the fact that entrepreneurship is glorified and it is not easy. I mean, that really resonates with me at the moment. Currently, I'm finding that work-wise, things are really ramping up. And I'm having to make a lot more sacrifices than what I usually would. And, I'm also quite a social person. And for me, being around people really fills me up. But at the moment, I'm having to really restrict myself on a social level. The past 3 weekends, I have been waking up at 6:30 and been working till about 2 p.m. And I think a lot of that side of entrepreneurship, a lot of people don't see. I think as well, when you are the owner of your own business, you have no one to hide behind. So when an issue occurs, and a lot of issues do take place, you have to be the face of that and take the brunt of it. And I think learning how to respond to situations that could be a little bit negative in a really professional way can sometimes be challenging, because I'm going to talk about me specifically, but dealing with people who are grieving is really, really challenging, because when people are already highly emotional, they are more inclined to kind of lash out, not think rationally. And me being calm and not really going through what they're going through is a really good thing, but I have to be extra understanding to people who are kind of going through these things. And throughout the tribute video business career that I've had so far, there has been a lot of cases where I've had to deal with families who have been quite irrational in their approach towards the way they've been speaking to me. It's very quick deadlines. I get a call and I'm expected to finish something in 2 days. So navigating that, for me personally, is very challenging. And you just have to think of the bigger picture, because at the end of the day, I know I'm helping these families and providing them with a beautiful thing. And you just have to understand what they're going through at the time. But it definitely provides its challenges for sure.
I can imagine. You mentioned there looking at the bigger picture. Do you think that when you, I guess when you create some sort of purpose for yourself in these businesses, which I'm assuming you've done so with all of the businesses, is it gives you some sort of purpose. Do you feel like these sacrifices or these like short-term pains almost, uh, that it's not bearable is not the word, but they almost become like exciting to face up to, because you know that by taking these hits and feeling this kind of short-term pain, you're actually serving yourself more in the greater picture.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of people say it's so much easier to work for someone else, and it 100% is, but nothing is more rewarding than building something yourself. And I think I put up with all of the sacrifices, all of the challenges that are presented to me, because I love the fact that I'm building something that is my own and that I have invested my love, sweat, and tears. And I think if I'm going to wake up at 6:30 on a Saturday and work until 3 p.m. in the afternoon, or if I'm going to be meeting with families at crazy hours and working around the clock, it's going to be for me and not really for someone else. And I think that's where the bigger picture of I can see long-term what I'm building, my goals, I'm very ambitious, that allows me to overcome those short-term challenges because there is a long-term gain there.
Yeah, that's powerful what you just said there. It's funny, right? Like as human beings, we have this natural instinct to run away from responsibility. And like you said, it's easier to work for other people because that means that they take the ownership of everything that goes wrong. But when you actually start taking responsibility for yourself, and this could, even if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, entrepreneurship isn't for me. If you just take responsibility for your own damn life, like, make your bed in the morning, like get up when you say you're going to get up, like go to the gym.
Made bed.
Yeah, nice. Nailed it. Your bed looks way nicer than mine. Mine's definitely like a classic Boise bed. It's just like one just plain sheet and just like the plainest pillows you've ever seen in your life.
I love that, but at least it's not in the background. No one needs to know.
Yeah, true. But I guess like what I'm saying is like when you start taking that ownership of your life, there's that like overwhelming pride, right? And I guess you get that to another level with entrepreneurship.
100%. I definitely think that when I decided to go out on my own, it's just so exciting when you think about, what am I going to call my business, designing your own logo, like everything that you've created is all you and it's a reflection of you. And I think, like what I said before, it presents itself amazing triumphs, but also incredible challenges. But I think, when you can sit there and hold your head up high and go, you know what? I persevered. And when things were really, really difficult, I didn't give up. That is really, really rewarding. And 100%, you feel proud of yourself.
Yeah, well done for that. I guess two little quick questions before I move on to the next topic would be maybe a couple of the hardest sacrifices that you've had to make, maybe some of the hardest challenges, whichever way you want to kind of approach it. And then how has it transferred into like your everyday life, like your relationships with your partner, your family, your friends, maybe your relationship with yourself?
Yeah.
Let's see where that goes.
All right. So I'll definitely start with my relationship with myself, because that has been a work in progress and it's something that I am currently working on at the moment. But I think I am a massive giver, and in the work that I do, I give a lot of myself. And I think I can end up feeling burnt out and depleted constantly because of that. And this is something that I've started implementing recently, because for a long time, I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I would do is straight into work. Like the first thing that I would do is be on the phone to clients, getting funeral videos done, because I would almost prioritize them before myself. And then I'd think to myself, I want to eat healthy, I want to exercise, I want to meditate, but I need to get all this stuff done first. And then once all that's done, I can then reward myself. But by the time the end of the day would come, I would be so exhausted that I'd just have to lay on the lounge and have a nap. And that would be me rewarding myself. So I had to take a really hard look at myself. And I think during COVID, when we were kind of forced to just be still and get real with ourselves, I had to kind of reevaluate my daily routine and think, I thought to myself, okay, this is not good for myself. So what I have now started implementing is a morning routine where I do something for myself every morning. And I think when I start my day for myself and I fill my cup up, and, you know, I'll meditate for 10 minutes and I'll go for a nice walk and I'll write a gratitude list. Those little things just put me in such a good headspace for the day. And then I just feel happy for myself that I've done something for myself. So for the rest of the day, if I'm just doing my work and speaking to everyone else, like, I feel okay and it's not as draining.
I feel that.
So yeah, relationship with myself is definitely something that I'm working on. And I think it's super important to value. And then relationships with other people as well. I would say that because I'm in the digital space, a lot of my work, I am on my phone, you know, social media, replying to clients at all hours, because when you're dealing with people in the funeral business, they will message you 2 nights before and you're speaking to them around the clock. So that can be a little bit difficult to switch off. But one of the things that I've always done is when I am spending time with anyone, it doesn't matter who they are, I put my phone away. And that's just something that I really live by, because I just think if I'm going to be spending time with you, then I'm going to give you my full attention. And I think with my closest relationships, with my partner, with my family, that's something that I really do implement, because I really value my relationships and the time that I spend with them.
Well, yeah, well done for learning those again, like quite early in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, because like you talk to a lot of people who are, I guess, not workaholics, but they dedicate themselves to their work because it gives them meaning and purpose. And they get to a point and they've forgotten about all the little tiny things in life which actually offer them the most joy, like, spending time with people you love and spending time with yourself. So yeah, I guess to link it back to the challenges you've faced as an entrepreneur, do you think that if you hadn't gone through those challenging times where you kind of realize that you were failing to serve yourself and maybe others close in your life, do you think if you hadn't gone through that, you would have come to this conclusion as early as you have?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think what I've really learned about entrepreneurship is all it is building relationships with people. That's what business is all about. And if you can build and maintain healthy relationships with your clients, with people that you deal with, then generally you're going to have really positive business interactions. And I think that has taught me that you need to translate that into your own personal relationships.
Yeah.
So I think overcoming those challenges that I've been through with my clients and people that I've dealt with in a business sense has also taught me how to deal with people in my personal life as well. So 100% agree.
Awesome. What do you think some of the barriers are when it comes to entrepreneurship? And I wanted to split this question in two. I wanted to ask you more in general, so just anyone listening in who wants to get into entrepreneurship, whether those barriers are personal, so like personal limiting beliefs, or external barriers, and then maybe as well specifically to women, because I mean, obviously, like, you're a woman yourself, and I don't know a lot about what those barriers might be in terms of because I'm male myself, so I'm interested to know.
100%. Well, I think one of the barriers that I have faced at the moment is probably my age, especially when I started being quite young. A lot of people would kind of not take me very seriously and think that I was just kind of young. Even one of the funeral homes that I deal with quite consistently, there's a lot of workers that are there and I'm always popping in and out. But as I was leaving the other day, one of the workers goes, "Oh, so how did you go on your HSC?" And I'm like, "I'm actually 25." So also looking young is a barrier as well.
Yeah, but I mean, that's awesome, right? Because then when you get to 50, people will be like, oh, happy 30th birthday.
I keep telling myself that all the time. So I'm just going to roll with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think being young, a lot of people judge you and think, oh, she's very young, inexperienced, doesn't really know what she's talking about. But I think you have to overcome that barrier. And when you are consistent in business and you develop trust and loyalty with your clients, they overlook that. But I think being young and also a female as well, you really kind of have to prove yourself maybe a little bit more than what you usually would. In terms of the female question, I would probably say that I've been quite lucky in terms of the clients and the people that I've dealt with. My first client, which is a chain of childcare centres, the owner of this childcare chain is actually quite high up in the childcare industry. She's actually the president of one of the childcare alliances of New South Wales. And having them as one of my clients very on in my career, I almost looked up to her in a way of just the way she conducted herself in a business sense. She stood her ground, but she was also very kind and loving and understanding to everyone. And I think having a really positive female role model very early on in my career really put my headspace in a really positive position to think, okay, well, she is so successful, very high up in her career, and is a female. There's no reason why I can't be either. And we would have a lot of conversation. She was almost like a mentor and, was very into personal development, which I'm very passionate about. And I think if you just constantly work on yourself and have belief that you can achieve whatever you set your mind to, I don't really think there should be a reason why just because, oh, I'm a female, that's going to detract from my success. I mean, that's my headspace anyway, but I haven't had anything drastic happen where I've, experienced major sexism in the workplace or anything like that.
Well, that's good to hear. I think a couple really good little nuggets of information you laid out there, and I'm glad you said it as mentors, right? And regardless of gender or race or whatever you identify as, it's always your choice to pick the people that you spend your time with and to pick the people that you learn off, right? So if you're in this place where you're constantly hanging around people who say, oh, you can't do this because of this, or you can't be this because of this, guess what? You're not going to become that person because it's constantly playing like a record tape that's stuck on repeat. Whereas if you associate yourself with people who you look up to and then emulate what they do, but in your own kind of way, you're going to succeed. It's as simple as that, right?
100%. And I think it's a combination of having an amazing mentor to guide you. And if you don't have a mentor, then there are so many incredible books that you can read that will retrain your mind into thinking that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to, or listening to amazing podcasts like Couple of Lattes and all the
we better shout out Erica and the Balance Theory podcast.
And the Balance Theory as well. And there is a plethora of podcasts where you can just listen to them as if they are your own mentor. And I just think this is probably a message for people who suffer from limiting beliefs or feel as though they can't achieve what it is they set out to, because I think whatever you think and your daily thought patterns are so influential in shaping the actions that you take and the person that you become. And if you can just implement a little bit of time every day into bettering yourself and becoming the best person that you can be and retraining your mind to think in a positive way, the results of that, you are just priceless.
That's powerful. How do you go about that though? Like let's imagine a listener right now going, wow, like this is awesome, but like what can I do to get my thoughts away from like all these negative aspects and all this like putting myself down? Like what are a few easy things that people could do right now?
Well, from a lot of the books that I've read, daily affirmations is something that's really, really positive. So what that means is you say really positive things about yourself to yourself on a daily basis. And what that does is you almost trick your mind into believing the things that you're saying about yourself until your mind believes them to be true. So if you're someone that suffers from consistent negative self-talk, I'm never good enough, I'm a failure, I'm never going to be anyone. If you say those thoughts to yourself on a daily basis, there is no way you're going to think anything of yourself but that. And initially, when you have negative thought patterns, it's not easy to just the next day be like, oh, well, I think I'm amazing, and to feel that way when you've been training yourself for so long to think these really negative things about yourself. So with affirmations, you have to be consistent and you have to be saying them to yourself. And it does feel really weird at the beginning when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm loved.
Yeah.
I'm intelligent, all these things. But over time, you almost convince your brain into thinking that these are true. And then it has like a really amazing effect on your overall mood, your mental state. And then you can kind of move that forward into going after whatever it is you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you said that. It's crazy. We were like, that's exactly what I was thinking might be the answer. And it was. So maybe that was an affirmation.
There you go. You put it out there, see?
Yeah. I guess the only one I might add to that, and you can tell me if you think you agree with this or not, but would be to just take small actions, right? Like, it's all good and well planning and thinking and dreaming, but like a dream is just a dream until you actually take action towards it, right? Like, even if it's a tiny, tiny action.
100%. And I actually am just going to read you one of my favorite quotes that is on my sticky note on my computer.
Awesome.
And it says, it's one of my favorite quotes by Napoleon Hill. It says, "Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and start with whatever tools you may have at your command, and better tools will be found as you go along."
Awesome. That's such a good quote.
What were you going to say?
Is that from his book, Think and Grow Rich?
Yes, it is.
Such a good book.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. And I think that's so true because especially when you're starting out, it's so easy to be like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't have the best gear. I need to learn more. And all of that just slows you down. And that quote is really pivotal for me because I used to think that way. And having that quote as a reminder, and you just have to take that leap of faith and push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, super inspired by that. And I think this is kind of a point in the podcast where I would want to say to people that are listening to this right now, like, I'm going to be a little bit harsh here. Like, if you really want this, if you really want to make your dreams your reality, like, no one is going to do it for you. Listening to this podcast right now is not going to result in anything happening in your life. It's going to be your actions, right?
100%.
Awesome.
But I think your thoughts are what become your actions. So if you can really just nurture what goes on in your head, that will really facilitate positive actions taking place.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Powerful. I just jotted down quite a few timestamps there, so that'll be the intro.
Oh, wow. Exciting.
Cool. So I guess another one, maybe a little bit of advice for listeners wanting to take a shot. Maybe something that, I don't know, 20-year-old you, when you're sitting in that boardroom and you're kind of making a decision as to, all right, I'm going to go out by myself. What would you have wanted in terms of advice at that point in your life?
In terms of advice, I would definitely say just do it and put yourself out there. But one of the biggest things that is so important and that I still have to remind myself today is just remember to be kind to yourself. Because I think growing up in the realm of social media and instant gratification, as a millennial, I definitely suffer from wanting to be there now. And if I'm not there now, then I get annoyed with myself because it's like, why? And I think we're so trained to uploading something and getting however many likes straight away or responses straight away that we are a little bit disillusioned into thinking that that's the way life works, and it's not. And I think for anyone wanting to start out, just enjoy the process and have fun with the journey, and just know that good things do take time and you just have to persevere and be consistent. So that's definitely what I'd say to my 20-year-old self. Be kind.
Awesome. And what about failure? Like how would you kind of suggest someone deals with failure? Because obviously, and regardless of whether you want to call it failure, maybe call it opportunity. I think that's a better word. But how do you deal with that? Because a lot of people, and you mentioned millennials having this like instant gratification, and I found that at school it was just almost too much cotton wool. Like kids weren't able to fail and learn from it. They were just told, "Oh, it's okay, like it's fine." Well, guess what? Like sometimes it's not fine, and you need to be able to deal with that. So, what kind of advice would you give to someone around that?
Look, I would definitely say the way you deal with adversity, challenges, and failures really defines who you are as a person. And I think that life is not all rainbows and sunshine. And especially with entrepreneurship, you are going to be faced with a number of challenges and failures. And like what you said before, I think you really just need to respond to any difficulty or failure with the fact that you've learned something. It's been an opportunity in itself. And I'll actually give you a story because I have read a lot of personal development books and business books even prior to me starting a business. So I did have a pretty good understanding of a lot of failures and challenges were going to take place, and that was okay. And I think that really helped shape me, that when those failures and challenges did take place, I was in a headspace where I was expecting it and I was like, you know what, this is okay. And I'll give you a story of one of the first times I experienced a small failure, but at the time it was really, really big. So I had just started doing funeral videos. And when you get the call for funeral videos, they can be from all over Sydney. And sometimes the families would like me to go to the actual church to test the audiovisual setup at the church to make sure that it plays okay the day before. And then to be there on the day to actually play it, because every church system is super temperamental, and that is just another challenge in itself. But when I first started, I'll never forget, I had a job for a church test the day before that was 2 hours away. And I was like, okay, this is like my first church test. I'm so excited, even though it's 2 hours away. Like, this is my first gig. I'm so excited. So I called them the day before and I spoke to someone at the parish office and I just said, I'm putting together a tribute video for a family for a funeral service that's taking place in a couple of days' time. I'd like to come the day before to test it. I go, what do I need to bring? And she goes, oh, all you need to bring is a USB stick with the video on it, and we'll be able to set it up when you get here. And I was like, amazing. So I had just driven 2 hours and I'm like driving with this really positive headspace. Even though I was driving 2 hours, I was like so excited. This was my first job. And was listening to like jamming some music on the way there. I get there, go to the parish office, and I said, hi, I'm here to test a video. And the woman goes, oh, yes, did you bring a laptop? And I said, no. I said, I just was told to bring a USB. And she goes, oh, no, we don't provide the laptop. You need to bring the laptop. And I just looked at her and I was just thinking to myself, I have just driven 2 hours without a laptop. So I just had to compose myself for a second. And I said to her, okay, well, I've actually left my laptop at home. So I'm going to have to drive back and come back with it. And she goes, oh, okay, no worries. So I go, yeah, so I'll probably be back in about 4 hours. And she goes, okay, no worries. And I just remember driving home that day being like, okay, Nat, this is all part of the process. Next time, you're going to bring your whole laptop and your whole camera gear and everything. And ever since that day, I have bought every single possible piece of equipment that I could need to every single church test. But I think it's those little moments where I could have easily just gone, this is just too hard, stuff it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I learned from it, and I think that's the important bit.
Yeah. And I think that's like an example as well of extreme ownership almost. Like, all right, like it's easy at that point to blame. Maybe you could be like, well, why didn't you tell me to bring a laptop and this is all your fault? But that's not going to solve anything. So I guess that's one of the kind of areas you need to need to navigate as an entrepreneur is like, you need to be the one who's just willing to take total responsibility, no matter whether it's your fault or not, because you're the one that needs to produce the result, right? So even if it's another person who makes a mistake, they don't care too much about the result like you do. So
Definitely.
that's a powerful lesson.
100%.
Cool. Any more advice before we move into the 4-in-1?
Any more advice? I would I would just definitely have to say that perseverance and consistency are super important if you want to get into entrepreneurship, and just believing in yourself, because self-belief is what is going to allow you to overcome all of the difficult times. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'm a big believer in having vision boards and mood boards. I'm quite a visual person. So having a visual display of what my goals and dreams are really helps me drive me to achieving my goals, because sometimes when it does get a little bit difficult, I'll kind of look up and it's like, okay, that's why I'm doing this. And it's just like a constant reminder of what it is that you're working towards.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Powerful stuff. I think anyone listening to this right now is getting amazing nuggets of information. I know I am. So thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.
Well, anyway, let's move into the 4-in-1. I can't believe it's already been 50 minutes. That
Wow, that has flown.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I haven't even looked at the time once.
Yeah, this is what I love about podcasting, right? Like in this kind of format. And that's why, like, you and I were talking about this before. You asked if there was anything that you needed to know. And I find like when there's less structure, I just feel like it flows more like a regular conversation. That's what I love about podcasts is it's not like dot point, dot point, dot point. It's like you actually get the real feeling and the real emotion behind someone's answer. So thanks for like sitting through it with me. And
I'm genuinely having the best time. So thank you.
Well, I guess this is a sign from the universe that you should definitely have a podcast then.
All right, that's it. It's happening.
Yes, you heard it here first. Couple of lattes.
My first episode, giving a shout out to you for sure.
Yes. Cool. All right, Nat. Well, let's move into the 4-in-1. So this is a combination of, I guess, challenging questions, but then also a little bit funny, because laughter is good for the soul. Your 2 greatest inspirations.
My 2 greatest inspirations. The first one would definitely have to be my mum.
Mm-hmm.
She is very inspiring to me and has always been my number 1 fan, and just also is a massive role model. And she inspires me on a daily basis. And my other inspiration would also have to be my partner. He as well also inspires me on a daily basis. And I think a lot of the achievements that I have made so far is thanks to him, because he really pushes me out of my comfort zone. And I think people who are really close to you can inspire you like no one else really can. And if you've got really beautiful relationships with those close to you, it can be really inspiring. So massive shout out to them too.
Awesome. That's beautiful. And what are their names? Are we allowed to say their names?
Yeah. So my mum's name is Daniela and my partner's name is Mark.
Daniela, Mark. Big shout out.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Third one for you. One book that you would take with you to Mars.
Yeah, so definitely Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Nice.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a solid book. Definitely in my top 5. Okay. And the last question for you, and then you get one question for me. What is your dream startup? Like something that you've kind of always wanted to do, but maybe you don't have the experience yet, or you don't have the funds for. Just something that's kind of always been on your mind, I guess.
Okay. Are you ready for this? Because we're going to go really off topic.
Let's do it.
So I am actually really into astrology and star signs and birth charts and all of that. And I would love to learn astrology and actually learn how to read people's birth charts. So that's actually quite spiritual. And yeah, it gives you a really deep insight into people's personalities, and that really fascinates me. And I would love to start a business astrology related in some sense, and maybe reading people's birth charts.
That's amazing. So how are you going to go about, I guess, taking a step towards that in the coming year?
In the coming year, I don't know about that because I do have a lot on my plate at the moment, but I think that's just something that I've always been fascinated with. It's probably more so a hobby. But yeah, if I had more time than what I do right now, then I'd probably dabble in that a little bit. But at the moment, I just don't have the time for it.
Yeah, right. You got plenty of years ahead anyway, so that's something you can do later on in life.
Exactly.
Amazing, cool. Well, that's it for quickfire questions for you. You get one for me now.
Okay, so I've got a bit of a deep one for you as well.
I'm nervous. I'm
similar.
sweating.
You should be. So something similar that we brought up in the podcast, but I really would like to get your insights on it as well. What's a challenge that you have overcame yourself and almost turned into a positive thing?
Good question. A challenge I've overcome. How deep do we want to go here?
As deep as you want.
Okay. Probably the biggest challenge I've overcome in recent years, in the past 5 years, I had a very toxic relationship that I was in for a while. And it was toxic more so from my end than it was from her end. She's an amazing person, still is to this day. But anyway, regardless of what happened in that relationship, it didn't end well. And it didn't end well for me in a big way because I'd put so much of my self-identity and who I was as a person into this external validator, right? Which was my ex-girlfriend. And so when things came crumbling down, I felt like everything that made up Jacques Massey was just poof, gone into thin air. So I went through a pretty severe short-term depression. I got into a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs, and I got to a point where I was standing on a balcony and I had my hands on a rail. And for the first time in my life, I looked down and went, I wonder what I'd look like on the pavement, pretty much. And at that point there at the time was, it was horrific to think those thoughts in my mind. But now when I look back on it, I'm so immensely grateful for that moment, because if I hadn't had that deep pain, that deep suffering, I wouldn't have snapped out of the weird kind of materialistic life I'd been living for such a long period of time. So that would be, probably the biggest thing for me. Does that answer your question?
Definitely does. That's an incredibly moving story. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. And
No worries.
I think it's incredible that you were able to get to that point and still to this day look at it as a positive thing, because it allowed you to kind of be the person that you are today. So I really take my hat off to you for overcoming such a massive challenge like that.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and doing this podcast with me. It's been amazing, even better than I expected. I kind of knew it was going to be an awesome chat. Like, the first chat we had was super easy, flowed really well. I consider you someone who's definitely going to be, a friend further down the track in my life. And I would say definitely a big inspiration to me. And I can't wait to meet you in person. Can't wait to have a couple of lattes in Sydney. Maybe we can, you, Erica, and I can sit down and have a good yarn. But thank you so much for this. And for anyone listening who's kind of sitting there going, wow, this person seems like maybe they could be a mentor in my life, or maybe I've got a business idea I want to pitch to Nat. How can they get a hold of you? Where's the best places to follow you, to contact you, all that jazz?
Yeah, I definitely say just my personal Instagram account, Natalie Fraumeni. You can follow me, send me a DM if this podcast resonated with you. I would love to get your thoughts on what we discussed today. So yeah, my Instagram is probably the easiest place to make contact.
Awesome. And what about your businesses?
So Peckish is peckish.sid on Instagram, and my funeral tribute video business is White Butterfly Tributes on Instagram, or you can just go straight to our website, which is whitebutterflytributes.com.au.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you have on your mind that you just want to blast out to the world?
I just want to thank you so much for having me. This conversation today was incredible. You are an amazing host, and I really thought that we delved quite deep today. And thank you so much for asking me to come on. I'm really, really appreciative.
No worries. I can't wait to talk again.
Me too. Thanks so much, Jacques.
Hello again, friend. Thanks for listening to the entirety of that episode. I truly appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't already, please subscribe on whatever platform you're using. And if you're using Apple Podcasts, huge favor to ask you, can you please leave a 5-star rating, leave a comment, leave a review, and be sure to share this with anyone in your life that you think it'll impact positively. Each and every rating and review that we get on Apple Podcasts helps beat the algorithm and get the podcast out to more people. And I think these conversations are worth sharing. So thanks once again, and we'll see you in the next episode of Couple of Lattes.